A 27-year-old man stands in a dark basement. 12 professional killers surround him. Their guns are drawn. There's one exit and it's blocked. The man they've come to execute? He asks them a single question that makes their blood run cold. Is that all Dutch sent? 90 minutes later, 11 bodies litter that basement floor. Only one man walks out alive, and he's carrying a message that will make the most feared mobster in New York back down for the first time in his life. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just a story about survival. It's about the night one man rewrote the rules of power in America's most famous neighborhood. And by the end, you'll understand why this moment, February 14th, 1933, changed organized crime forever. Let me take you back to Harlem in 1933. The Harlem Renaissance over. The Great Depression had stripped away the jazz club's glitter and left something rawer, more desperate in its place. Men who'd once worked honest jobs now stood in breadlines. Families chose between rent and food. But there was one thing that still thrived: hope. And hope had a price tag, a nickel. The numbers racket was Harlem's lifeline, an illegal lottery where you could bet 5 cents and win $50. When you're making $7 a week, that nickel isn't just money. It's a dream you can hold in your hand. Every morning, thousands of people placed their bets. Every evening, a few won, most didn't. But everyone played because everyone needed to believe tomorrow could be different. Now you need to understand something about 1933. This was the last year of Prohibition. Bootleggers had made fortunes, but the liquor laws were about to change. Smart criminals were looking for the next empire to build. Enter Dutch Schultz, a German Jewish mobster from the Bronx who'd killed over 40 men on his way to the top. Dutch had made millions selling illegal whiskey, but he saw the future coming. He needed a new kingdom, and when he looked south toward Harlem and saw millions of nickels flowing through the numbers game, he made a decision that would set everything in motion. He wanted it all. There was just one problem. Harlem already had a queen, Madame Stephanie St. Clair, a Caribbean immigrant who'd built the numbers empire with nothing but guts and brilliance. She ran the most sophisticated operation in New York, treated her runners fairly, paid out honestly, and earned something money couldn't buy: loyalty. And standing beside her, a young enforcer named Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson. Now, Bumpy wasn't your typical muscle. Born in Charleston, South Carolina, he'd come to Harlem as a teenager and spent time in prison, but he didn't waste those years. He read Shakespeare, he studied philosophy. He understood something most gangsters never grasped. In Harlem, respect wasn't bought with fear. It was earned with protection. When Madame St. Clair's runners got robbed, Bumpy got the money back. When dirty cops tried to extort black businesses, Bumpy made them regret it. Sometimes violently, sometimes by destroying their careers. He was strategic, patient, and absolutely unbreakable. Which is why when Dutch Schultz came calling, Bumpy Johnson refused to bow. January 1933, Dutch's emissaries walked into Madame St. Clair's club on 133rd Street. Expensive suits, cold eyes, the kind of men who delivered ultimatums to 100 business owners. The message was simple: work with Dutch Schultz. Pay tribute or get buried. Madame St. Clair, this woman who'd built an empire in a world that didn't want black people to have power, looked at these white men sitting in her club, in her neighborhood, threatening her life's work. She said 2 words: get out. One of the emissaries turned to Bumpy, standing silent in the corner. You want to be smart about this, boy? What happened next became legend in Harlem. Bumpy didn't speak, didn't move. He just stared at them with those eyes, the kind of stare that made men remember they were mortal. The emissaries left, but they didn't forget. They told Dutch Schultz that a black woman and her enforcer had said no. Dutch Schultz had never been told no. Not by politicians he'd bought, not by rival mobsters he'd crushed, certainly not by people he considered beneath him. His response was pure rage. Burn it all down. Start with the enforcer. But Dutch didn't just want Bumpy dead. He wanted to make a statement, the kind of public, brutal execution that makes everyone else fall in line. The kind that says, this is what happens when you defy Dutch Schultz. He sent his best killers. Tommy, the executioner Vento, who'd killed 16 men and always looked them in the eye. Marty Icepick Delaney, who'd earned his nickname. 10 more whose names even the police didn't know. 12 professional killers with one mission: The date they chose, February 14th, Valentine's Day. The irony wouldn't be lost on Bumpy. 4:30 in the morning, February 14th. Bumpy had gotten a tip. Dutch's men were planning to hit Madame St. Clair's main counting house at dawn. He went to check it out alone. Now you might think that was a mistake, but I'll tell you something about Bumpy Johnson. He didn't make mistakes. He made choices, and every choice was calculated. The Cotton Club basement, not the famous integrated club downtown where white audiences came to watch black performers. This was the real Cotton Club, the after-hours spot where Harlem's power players came to drink, gamble, and settle scores. The basement was used for storage, crates of liquor, poker tables, and one narrow staircase leading up to the only exit. Perfect place for a trap. Bumpy descended those stairs into near darkness. One light bulb swung from the ceiling, casting shadows that moved like living things. That's when he heard it, 12 safeties clicking off in unison. The shadows resolved into men, 12 of them, stepping into the light with their guns already drawn. They'd been waiting, patient as spiders. Tommy the executioner stepped forward, smiling that smile he always wore before someone died. Dutch sends his regards. Bumpy stood there, hands at his sides, face absolutely calm. He looked around the room slowly, counting, cataloging, calculating. Then he looked back at Tommy and said 5 words that would become legend. That all he sent. Tommy's smile faded. See, here's the thing most people don't understand about courage. It's not about being unafraid. It's about being so committed to your principles that fear becomes irrelevant. And Bumpy Johnson, standing there outnumbered 12-1, wasn't bluffing when he asked that question. He meant it. You got about 5 seconds to beg, Tommy said, raising his gun. Bumpy tilted his head slightly. You're making a mistake. What mistake? You're about to be dead. The mistake, Bumpy said slowly, deliberately, is thinking I came here alone. For the first time you could see hesitation ripple through those 12 men. Tommy glanced at the stairs. Nothing there. He looked back at Bumpy. You're bluffing. Bumpy smiled for the first time. Then shoot, nobody shot. Because here's what Dutch Schultz's killers didn't know. Bumpy Johnson had been fighting since he was 10 years old. Street fights in Charleston, prison riots in Sing Sing, territory wars in Harlem. He'd learned something most men never learn. Violence has a rhythm, and whoever controls the rhythm controls the outcome. Tommy's finger tightened on the trigger. Last chance, and Bumpy moved. What happened next would be debated for decades. The one survivor's testimony was fragmented, confused, almost delirious. But here's what we know for certain. Bumpy didn't go for a gun. He went for the light. One punch, the hanging bulb shattered. The basement plunged into complete darkness, then chaos. The first shots came wild, panicked. Men shooting at shadows, at sounds, at nothing. Tommy screaming, "Hold your fire, hold your fire!" But fear doesn't follow orders. In that darkness, Bumpy transformed into something else. He knew that room, had played poker there 100 times, knew every crate, every table, every corner. Dutch's men were strangers, stumbling blind. One by one you could hear them going down. Not from Bumpy's gunshots. He didn't waste bullets. He used his hands, used their confusion, used the fact that in their panic they were shooting each other. A scream, a body hitting concrete. Another gunshot, another scream. Tommy tried to rally them. The stairs. Get to the stairs, but Bumpy was already there. The violence lasted 3 minutes. 3 minutes that felt like 3 hours. 3 minutes that would echo through criminal history for decades. Then silence. When someone finally opened the basement door from upstairs, morning light spilled down those steps like water. And here's what they found: 11 bodies. Not all dead, but all down. Broken bones, gunshot wounds from friendly fire. Unconscious, bleeding, destroyed. And one man sitting against the wall, hyperventilating, gun shaking in his hand. Marty Icepick Delaney, the only one still conscious. Bumpy Johnson, gone. Vanished like smoke. Marty Delaney crawled up those stairs. Took him 20 minutes. Every step agony with broken ribs, maybe worse. He made it to the street as the sun was rising, flagged down a cab with blood-soaked money. Bronx, he gasped. Arthur Avenue. Dutch Schultz's headquarters, and 17 a.m. Marty stumbled into Dutch's social club, leaving a trail of blood. Dutch was eating breakfast, eggs, toast, coffee, reading the newspaper, when he looked up and went absolutely still. "Where are the others?" Marty couldn't speak at first. Just shook his head. Dutch stood slowly. "Where are my men?" Dead, Marty finally whispered. All of them. He let me live. The entire room went silent. Dutch's lieutenants, his accountants, his bodyguards, everyone stopped and watched. He what? He let me live. To give you a message. Marty reached into his jacket. Dutch's men reached for their guns, but Marty pulled out a single playing card. The ace of spades, covered in blood. He placed it on the table in front of Dutch Schultz. He said to tell you Harlem's not for sale, and if you send more men, send more cards. He's collecting a deck. Dutch stared at that card for a long, long time. His men waited for the explosion, waited for Dutch to unleash hell to send 50 men to burn Harlem to the ground. Instead, Dutch picked up the card, studied it, then smiled. Not a happy smile, a smile of recognition. He's got balls, I'll give him that. Boss, we can't let this. Dutch held up his hand. You know what it costs to go to war with someone who's not afraid to die? Someone who's smarter than you. Someone who has an entire neighborhood behind him. He shook his head. It costs everything. And for what? Numbers money? There's easier money. He dropped the card in the ashtray and lit it on fire. We're done in Harlem. Let Bumpy Johnson have it. The decision shocked everyone. Dutch Schultz, the man who'd gone to war with Lucky Luciano, who'd killed his own partners, who never backed down. Backed down. Why? Because Bumpy had proven something even Dutch respected. He was willing to die for his principles. And men like that, you don't fight them. You either kill them, or you leave them alone. And Dutch couldn't kill him. Now here's where it gets interesting. In the 1970s, 40 years later, a reporter tracked down one of the Cotton Club's old employees, asked him what really happened that night. The old man smiled. You want the truth? Bumpy wasn't alone. What? He had 4 guys upstairs the whole time. Once Dutch's men went down to the basement, Bumpy's guys locked the door from the outside. Trapped them in. Bumpy could have killed all 12 if he wanted, but he let one live on purpose. Why? Because Bumpy understood something. Killing Dutch's men would start a war. Humiliating them? That ends it. Whether that's true or legend, nobody knows for sure. Maybe that's the point. What we do know, after that night, Dutch Schultz never sent another man to Harlem. Bumpy Johnson became the undisputed king of Harlem's underworld, and for the next 35 years, he protected that neighborhood like it was his own family. Not with indiscriminate violence, but with strategy, intelligence, and a code of honor. And that ace of spades? Bumpy kept it, framed it, hung it in his office as a reminder. Respect isn't given. It's taken. February 14th, 1933. 12 men walked into a basement. 1 walked out alive, and Harlem was never the same.